Shocking, messed up Disney movie facts you never knew. Hey guys, today we're going to list the shocking, messed up Disney movie facts you never knew. Let's get right into it. Number 1. Toy Story 2 was nearly deleted by mistake. We've all had that gut-wrenching feeling that you might have closed a document without saving it, or that you've lost something important to you. One overly enthusiastic Pixar employee's momentary lapse in judgment nearly erased an entire film. The person in question accidentally ran a command on their computer system that erased everything in the files while the filmmakers were working on the much-anticipated sequel, Toy Story 2. Panic ensued, exacerbated by the discovery that the backup system that could have restored the erased material had been down for some time. While one might wonder why such a button exists, despite this potentially very costly error, the story ends happily. Fortunately, supervising technical director Galen Sussman, who was on maternity leave at the time, suggested that the film could be restored from her personal computer. Against all odds, the team was able to reconstruct the film using the files on her computer and save the day. In a cruel twist of fate, much of the restored work was scrapped anyway, as the film went through a lengthy series of rewrites that saw much of what had been animated altered in some way. Number 2. At least one theater had to reupholster its seats after children wet themselves during a performance of Snow White. When it comes to distressing, dark, or downright disturbing content, Disney isn't afraid to go there. However, audiences may not have been prepared for how frightening their first feature-length offering would be in 1937. Snow White is undeniably one of Disney's darker offerings, with one of the most notorious villains and a plot centered on murder and deception, all in the name of vanity. In fact, the film was deemed so frightening in England that children under the age of 16 had to be accompanied by an adult. The film's premiere was held in New York's Radio City Music Hall, and after the film's initial theatrical run was completed, the upholstery on their seats reportedly had to be replaced because children would frequently wet themselves in fright during scenes like Snow White's flight through the scary forest. While this scene clearly had the desired effect and caused a slightly costly problem for the theater in question, there was plenty more disturbing content that was cut out. One of these was a discarded scene in which the audience witnesses Snow White's mother's death. Perhaps a foreshadowing of things to come in future films, as Disney has a penchant for killing off parents with increasing frequency. Number 3. Ursula was inspired by a well-known drag queen. Ursula, the sea witch from The Little Mermaid, is arguably one of the most memorable Disney villains of all time, but Divine, a drag queen, was the real-life inspiration for her design. Divine was director John Waters' muse, appearing in several of his films, including Multiple Maniacs and Pink Flamingos. If you are unfamiliar with Waters' work, his films are as far from Disney as you can get. Animator Rob Minkoff experimented with several designs for Ursula, beginning with a very thin, almost Joan Collin-esque character. Ursula eventually evolved into the curvy sorceress we know and love today, after songwriter Howard Ashman saw a sketch of Divine and decided it would be the perfect look for the character. Number 4. Robin Hood uses tons of recycled Disney animation. Disney has survived some pretty traumatic events and box office flops over the years and managed to thrive. Notable examples include World War II, when the studio lost a large portion of its workforce and revenue to the war effort and had to rely on a series of package films to stay afloat. Similarly, after Walt's death in 1966, the studio was left with no clear direction or purpose, and small budgets had to work much harder to continue producing films. Because animation is both expensive in terms of money and time, some cost-cutting measures were employed on occasion to keep things running smoothly. One of the techniques used was rotoscoping, which is an animation technique used by animators to trace over existing footage, as seen in 1973's Robin Hood. The animated version of the legendary outlaw repurposed Disney animation, including scenes from Snow White, the Aristocats, and The Jungle Book. The Disney artists have never denied using this technique, and while it is most visible in Robin Hood, it was also used in Beauty and the Beast, which borrows some of the ballroom dancing animation from Sleeping Beauty. Number 5. A phrase from Bambi was used to signal Walt's arrival. Walt held a lot of power and influence over his studio's creative output during the golden age of Disney, and with Bambi in particular, he was adamant that every aspect of this film would be perfect. He went to great lengths to ensure the film's accuracy, including shipping real deer to the Burbank studio and hiring an animal anatomist to ensure his artist's drawings were as accurate as possible. While these laborious efforts paid off in the end, they undoubtedly created a stressful environment for the animators and crew working on the film. They developed a phrase among themselves to signal Walt's arrival to each other as they worked, preparing for the nitpicking that would come with his daily visits to the studio. Man is in the forest. The film's most ominous line is spoken when the faceless man, the film's villain, arrives in the idyllic forest to hunt. According to a New England Historical Society profile, when Walt was spotted coming down the corridor, the artist would use this exact line to alert their colleagues that the boss was on his way. That's all for today, and we'll be sure to catch you all in the next one.